Good afternoon, I'm Patrick Serrano, and this is the KQBH News Update. Yesterday in Washington, D.C., hundreds of Trump supporters pushed their way past police and went inside the U.S. Capitol building, stopping the U.S. Congress from continuing its process to count the nominations of the next U.S. president. The Trump supporters carried signs demanding to stop the steal of the election and determining for themselves that the election was a, quote, rigged and a fraud. Many of these supporters are members of an armed militia group who call themselves the Proud Boys. Militia members were armed, and people in their group believed they were going to occupy the Capitol. Grassroots leader of the Los Angeles chapter of Black Lives Matter, Melina Abdullah, stated, "Yesterday's attempted white supremacist coup is yet another reason to #abolish the police. Police didn't just, quote, not do their jobs. They supported and actively enabled terrorists and took part in a violent siege on the U.S. Capitol. This is who they are. They cannot be reformed." A San Diego woman and veteran who had served 15 years in the U.S. Air Force attempted to enter Congress by breaking and pushing through a glass window, was shot and killed by an officer. In addition to the shooting, one woman and two men died around the Capitol grounds after suffering separate medical emergencies. Trump supporters entered the chamber, stole and disheveled materials, and took pictures of themselves, and were allowed to leave the premises. D.C. Chief of Police Robert Conti announced that 52 people were arrested, and a pipe bomb was found at the DNC, and another pipe bomb was found at the RNC, as well as a cooler with a long gun and Molotov cocktails. Los Angeles mayor made a statement saying, "What we saw yesterday were thugs who brought an abomination to our nation's capital and who attacked our capital. It was a group of people who were incited by the President of the United States of America." Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is urging for President Donald Trump's cabinet members to remove him using the 25th Amendment. Pelosi said if they don't, Congress may move forward with impeachment. Sister of Eric Prince, owner of private military company Blackwater, and cabinet member and Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, resigned from her position, blaming Trump's rhetoric that led to the riot at the Capitol. Also resigning from their position is cabinet member and Secretary of Labor Elaine Chao, wife of soon-to-be Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Lawmakers vow to investigate the D.C. police to determine how the Trump supporters were allowed to enter the Capitol building. Investigative reporter for the Washington Post, Aaron C. Davis, tweeted during the insurrection, stating that a source told him that the Defense Department had denied a request from D.C. officials to deploy the National Guard to the Capitol, only to hear a while later that National Guard was going to be deployed. Newly elected Republican member of the West Virginia House of Delegates, Derek Evans, recorded himself as he rioted with the Trump supporters. "We're in. Keep it moving, baby," he said. "No vandalizing." This is while photos are circulating online of vandalizations and a person peeing on the Capitol steps. Hundreds of Trump supporters gathered outside numerous Capitol buildings across the nation, including the state of Georgia, Kansas, Minnesota, Texas, Oregon, Arizona, Colorado, and California. At Los Angeles City Hall, hundreds gathered to listen to speakers and chant that the election was rigged. Fights broke out amongst themselves, and 6 were arrested, 3 for carrying an unpermitted item, 2 for failing to disperse, and 1 for resisting an officer. With all that said, Congress returned to the Capitol building when it was safe, and late in the evening certified Joe Biden to be sworn in as next President of the United States. At Los Angeles City Hall, hundreds gathered to listen to speakers and chant that the election was rigged. Fights broke out amongst themselves, and 6 were arrested, 3 for carrying an unpermitted item, 2 for failing to disperse, and 1 for resisting an officer. With all that said, Congress returned to the Capitol building when it was safe, and late in the evening certified Joe Biden to be sworn in as next President of the United States. At Los Angeles City Hall, hundreds gathered to listen to speakers and chant that the election was rigged. Fights broke out amongst themselves, and 6 were arrested, 3 for carrying an unpermitted item, 2 for failing to disperse, and 1 for resisting an officer. With all that said, Congress returned to the Capitol building when it was safe, and late in the evening certified Joe Biden to be sworn in as next President of the United States. In COVID-related news, California has now had 2.5 million cases. Hospitals are at max capacity, and effective immediately, hospitals that have any room available must accept patients from any other hospital. This directive applies not to only COVID-19 patients, but also those with non-COVID related emergencies. Homeless sites are overwhelmed with COVID cases. Reverend Andrew J. Bales, chief executive of the Union Rescue Mission, had, before the pandemic, erected a large tent behind its 5-story building on Skid Row. The tent at Union Rescue Mission became an impromptu triage center in response to the sudden surge in spread of the disease through the homeless shelter system. LA County supervisors are expanding their rent relief program as well as eviction moratorium. Renters seeking help can call a county counselor at 833-223-7368. The program will now raise the available assistance for $7,500 to $10,000 for eligible households making up to 50% of the average median income. Also, the county will also make payments directly to property owners to supplement partial payments made earlier. About 70% of qualified households receive partial assistance. Again, renters seeking help can call a county counselor, 833-223-7368. 14-year-old boy and Boyle Heights resident Everett Cutson was shot and killed at Prospect Park last Saturday afternoon at 3:20 p.m. The murderers were not identified and have yet to be apprehended. You can find a GoFundMe page made by the family members by searching In Memory Everett Cutson. A phone app was developed by Los Angeles resident Charmaine Davis that will help people of color in their community. The app is called Just Us and has 3 functions: check in, heads up, and help, which will help parents quickly keep track of their children, as well as send a ping to all users in the neighborhood using the app to assist the person if they're in an emergency. You can find the app called Just Us in your app stores. I'm Patrick Serrano for KQBH News 101.5 KQBH LP Los Angeles, California, a community service of Boyle Heights Arts Conservatory. You can find us at the app LPFMLA or ednixon.com.